afternoon. Can you hear me? You can. Yeah. Right. I know there are a lot of pillars, but I'm still going to try and make sure that I'm visible and heard to all of you. As you saw the introductory video, you saw the hair is still thinning and continuously goes to thin, but it did remind me of some of my earlier days. Thanks for that, Janil. Yeah. So I'm going to possibly, yeah. I would like to ask you what's common between two things, right? A bring your own food party and a new rule in school cricket. Yeah, some of you have played school cricket in Harris Shield. What is common between these two things? Friends. Okay, what else? Team. Okay, fine. Yes, all of it. But for me, it was a little different. The school there, which you see on the right, is a small school near the now Dabolim airport of Goa. I studied there in the 70s, just to kind of make sure the decade is right. And this was a small school, and you could see the flights take off and go. There were exactly 5 flights which landed in the whole year in Goa at that time. And there was one party which we used to cherish every year. The party which was really around Christmas, where each one of us was supposed to get one item, keep it in the center of the table, and sit around, all of us small kids, right? And the teacher would go about distributing one item to each one of them. Yeah? There were some well-to-do people, kids from well-to-do background who'd get mango slash, pastries, puffs, what have you, Goa, right? But I've often experienced the shame and embarrassment of possibly carrying very modest item. That's all some of us could carry there. We would carry a roti jam, we would carry lemonade, maybe some chips. And then you know how kids are. The moment you put those items, they'll say, oh, boring, chi. And that's a feeling which stayed in me. But one thing remained at the end of it. When those items were served to all the children, and at the end of the evening, you could hear all of them finish the plates, clean, dry, and all of them with a smile on their faces. And that told me that I personally was experiencing at a very early age some bit of exclusion, and then finally some bit of inclusion. What you see on the right is really, I've got twin boys, and these twin boys were very good in cricket. They were excellent bowlers. How many of you play cricket here? Wonderful. I wish many more girls raised their hands, but they were only the boys who were raising their hands. Okay, so they were good bowlers, but their batting performance was always in single-digit scores. As a result of that, they would make sure that they're there in all the practice matches, but they would never make it to the final selection. Yeah, because you're not an all-rounder. And then in 2016, our little master Sachin Tendulkar introduced a new rule for school cricket in Harris Shield. And the rule said, play 14 instead of 11. 8 would be common teams, 3 would come to bat and go, 3 would come to bowl and go. And these twin boys managed to get in. I think in their debut match, which with the new rule, that was the debut match, the new rule of Sachin Tendulkar, the team won, the Bombay Scottish team. They've set up a new record for legacy. They've created a new record for legacy, and everyone went home happy. But there was a lesson in this for me. My twin boys did manage to get in for their bowling, but after excluding 3 good batsmen who could not play for half of the match. Yeah? And so to me, these two instances were about saying exclusion and inclusion go together. And that's what I'm going to talk about today, about if you're wanting to include something, you have to learn to exclude first. As a society, as a community, I always believe there are natural processes, rituals, systems which are barriers to inclusion, right? I'm sure you would have faced some of them. Let's say right from a school, I'm sure we've all been in some houses, right? There are those WhatsApp groups, the good morning, good afternoon groups, which are belonging to families and dear friends, and you don't allow anyone to come inside those groups. There's a golfers group, there's a bicycle group, and so on and so forth. So naturally, I think we are conditioned to say, let's flock together. People with like affinities flock together. That's one part. Second, I think I'm seeing a very interesting part of people getting some reassurance of collectively judging someone. If he's the enemy of my friend, he's my enemy too. So that ironically brings people together, the fact that let's collectively not like someone. And lastly, I think there's a dreaded normal curve, which I see in corporates. I've often encountered it, and I hear also in some academic institutions as well, I'm a sworn enemy of the normal curve. You know the normal curve, right? It says most of the people are at the center, they are normal. Then there are some outliers on the right-hand side who are super normal and they get the best increments, they get the best grades. And then it goes quietly and says the left-hand side of the curve are possibly not people whom we want. Yeah, they are abnormal, they are not up to the mark, they're non-conforming, and that's when you start this kind of segregating them separately. And to me, there's a learning there that we are normally conditioned. All these three examples I gave you, we are normally conditioned to make a separation, say, let me exclude something. Let's change the topic. I think intuitively, spontaneously, I think if you notice, we are born to be negative. I'm making a provocative statement, but I am born to be negative. So let's say, how was the walk today? How was the weather today when you walked? How was your flight today when you came into work? How was the food in the feast today? Yeah, I'm sure you asked these questions to many, or someone asked you this question. Just remember what is the first answer which you would have heard. It would start with the N dot O dot no. Yeah. How was the walk today? Well, weather was very sultry. The flight was very choppy, turbulent, and a khane mein salt went missing. I'm sure these are very natural words which you'll keep hearing from people. Yeah. Forgetting that you had lovely greenery in your walk, forgetting that you took a power nap in the flight, forgetting that the desserts were fantastic in the feast. You'll only point out the negative. And that got me thinking that to everything which we have, our first spontaneous reaction is to be negative. I'm sure you've seen this video, right? You take a bottle, you put in rocks, then you put in pebbles. It still has a lot of space for sand. But the practical problems of inclusion which I've encountered often are very clunky. They're like rocks and rocks and rocks here. They're not rocks and pebbles and sand. So I've often seen that to include something, you have to go to that bottle, first throw out the sand, take out the pebbles and take out some rocks, and then put in more rocks. That's the only way to get more rocks into the bottle, contrary to the videos which we see out. And that was a learning to me, to say that if you're going to go into an inclusion drive, you have to exclude something necessarily. What I'm going to do here, because as my friend introduced me, I'm going to share with you 4 or 5 examples from retail where we went on including something, but after excluding something, right? So the first part, and that's what, when I came to something like the execution checklist, my first part of the checklist is to include footprints, you have to exclude the footwear. Imagine a store in 2004, 2005 in a small town of Nashik. We saw a very strange thing happening, 2004, 2005, right? And way back then, that was my first year in retail. You would see a lot of people come to the store and keep their footwear out. Yeah, this is a classic store which you would have seen of the hypermarket which I worked for. A lot of people would keep their footwear out. This was such a lovely store, the first store in the city which has an air-conditioned environment, the first store with a lift, the first store with an escalator and trolleys to move. Yeah, there was overall awe and inspiration for the people, but they kept their footwear out. So what was the result of all that? The purchases were very small, the billings was very small. My CFO, I'm sure some of you from the finance fraternity, he would say Tata to EBITDA. Ab kuch nahi banne wala. There's nothing going to happen in this store. Yeah? And because all the purchases were so small. Fortunately, the team which worked there was one of the earliest teams of retail, and their livelihood depended on the success of the store. They asked us to keep faith. So what happened really is they started counters for under 10 items. They made sure that they get in smaller packs and smaller discounts. They made sure that there were smaller baskets, because if I'm only going to buy 2 packs, that large trolley makes me feel, well, incompetent, right? So smaller baskets, smaller trolleys, and they went about welcoming each and every customer, big or small. That store went to become a significant store in retail, the Nashik store. But more importantly, what was happening was with this exclusion of judgment over footwear, it was laying foundation to something which was close to modern trade. Today, India, we all know, boast about the next big thing happening in retail. It welcomed e-commerce, it welcomed marketplaces, it created huge employment. Not everyone's as fortunate as the people sitting here. After 10th or 12th, if someone wants a job in India, retail created that. And I was fortunate to be part of an environment which created 30,000 jobs in 10 years. And there were many more who did far more better than that. So what the Nashik store did, what the customers did, and what our teams did was to say, we will include many more and become what we proudly call to the modern trade category of India, right? And that's what was my first lesson, that anecdotally what the team did was to say, exclude the judgment on the footwear, welcome the footfall, welcome the footprints. And I think that's something which is very, very dear to my heart. We'll move to the next, include the dare and exclude care. And if you wonder what this is about, well, I think, how many of you remember their first day at school, their first day at work? I'm sure some of you have been to work, and the first visit to a five-star hotel. We often recount it with great joy. Bahut acha raha. But let's go back and think. The first day at school, I think all of us cried because it made us feel not being taken care of. Someone's just left in the school and gone away. The first day at work, we all fumble, right? Because there's nothing in control. You're waiting somewhere, your boss is supposed to meet you, but not meeting you, no one knows you've joined, etc., etc. Largely in many, many places which I've been part of work. And the first visit to a five-star hotel, well, I even now go through it. You're constantly looking at the right-hand side of the menu, right? Saying, okay, am I going to be there? What's going to happen? Is my date going to be embarrassed about this? Yeah. And that's the fear of losing something which you already built. Now, there comes the age, I believe, and we call that age the senior citizen age. When you encounter all these fears, the fear of losing control, the fear of losing your possession, and the fear of not being taken care of. And all of them kind of make the senior citizen individual or the couple very, very vulnerable. In retail, the hypermarket chain which I was associated with decided to kind of do something for them. And the very first ideas when we sat down for a brainstorming was around care. Oh, I care for them so much. So let's do a diet tips for them. Oh, I care for them so much. Let me do a pathological test drive for them. I care for them so much. Let me do financial planning tips. And that's when I came in and said, what are you going to exclude, but? These are all good inclusions, right? And we said, let's exclude the care itself. Let's treat them like regular customers. And we created what is known as the Young Elders Day, which was a shopping event every Thursday. Close to 100,000 customers would shop every Thursday. See, all senior citizens, but we banished the word senior citizen. We started calling them young elders. We banished their age. We banished judging them on how much money they have. We banished their very title itself. No longer were they called senior citizen. Even today, I find it very difficult to call anyone above a certain age senior citizen. I call them a young elder. And that what really happened is we gave them a small discount just to kind of make sure it was lucrative. But this is what you really saw, which made them come again and again. We curated a special event for them. They would come shop, and there would be a storytelling contest. They would come shop, and there would be a contest to kind of go and do a recipe contest for the men and women. You see some of them cooking a item here. There was a disco evening. There was the automatic car race contest, and I think the ultimate was we did India's first fashion show for young elders or senior citizens in the store, which was very well promoted. And you saw people came out in full glory. The figure in between, right? The person came in full glory. You had men and women doing the ramp walk. We created ramps in all the store. So that's what we really ended up doing for senior citizens. We excluded a care, and included a dare. The next one is really including the pizza box and excluding the pizza slice itself. This comes from a very regular thing about corporates where we kind of selfishly looking for share gains. And there was a product which got launched in retail. It was called a magic mop. Nothing was magical about it, trust me. But it was a mop with a big handle. And maybe a decade ago, it started getting a lot of traction. A lot of people came and bought this mop. So what was the first reaction of the buyers in my team to say, let's invoke a very dangerous clause called the exclusivity clause. We told the vendors of this mop, don't give this product to anyone else. It's only for us, this hypermarket. Yeah. How were they any different from the carbonated beverage brand, which said, I'm going to keep a certain beverage brand here, but you cannot keep anyone else's brand there? We were not very different. And what does happen? You have 3-4 beverage brand refrigerators by wasting space, electricity, and stocks. So here we challenge saying, what are you going to exclude? And we decide to exclude that whole clause on exclusivity. And we encouraged these brands to go about giving this product to many more people, all the competitors we had, all the grocery stores we had. And what came out was magic. I think the grocers got to introduce to a new product which they would have otherwise not had access to. The category of cleaning exploded. And this Hypermarket, went on to become a $2 billion enterprise, employing 30,000 people and 300 stores. So frankly, here was a case where everyone got a share of one slice, only one slice of pizza. But the box was becoming bigger, so the slice was becoming bigger for each one. And that was my learning from this third level of exclusion, where you excluded the pizza and instead focused on the box and said, let's make it larger. The next one, I think the next one is really including the play and excluding the playbook. Yeah, and there's a nice photo of bhajiyas here. I think much before we narrated diversity, equity, inclusion, I was part of a team which set up India's first all-women supermarket. This is 2005, unheard of, right? All-women supermarket, led by a very enterprising store head and a very enthusiastic team. We said, do whatever you want. I said whatever I want. My team did not support me. And you had something very magical happen. So the announcement started becoming recipes. Every 4 o'clock, there were chaat pakoras being given a sample, and people, whoever left the store, would be given a bunch of coriander and one lemon as a free return gift. Yeah? If that was not enough to incite the masculine criticism, they started singing out the promotions. Buy one, get one. You'd often hear a bunch of girls singing the promotions. Last 2 hours, then you had songs and songs of promotions. What happened to the store? Did it succeed? Well, honestly, the bad news is after 8 months, the store shut down. And for many more years after that, I heard, see, this is not how you run a store. You should never do it like that. This is wrong. But deep within, I didn't have to justify to others. There were two learnings. One, the store was amongst 5 other stores which shut down because there were other constraints of location which it could not cater to, which could not match. Nothing to do with the store inside. And second, what the young girls, the musical girls did to us was gave a big lesson to retail, saying shopping can be dull and boring. Add engagement, add indulgence, add a little bit of play. So in this case, we excluded the playbook. A new playbook got created. There are many more brands which do it far more successfully than the young bunch of girls. All of them rose to become very strong retailers in various organizations. So that kind of validated my thoughts, saying this is how things could be done by including a much larger set of girls into retail at those days, a much larger thought of doing engaging retail and excluding the conventional playbook. Last, for including the affinity, exclude the sympathy. I'm going to describe a scenario to you in a Noida hypermarket, a large hypermarket in Noida. It's 8 a.m. in the morning. It's quite dark, I would say mildly dark. The store is operational. It's very silent. The trolleys are moving very slowly. The staff are whispering to each other. They're not talking. It's almost like someone scolded saying no noise. But to make up for that, you have a bunch of shoppers, each one with a child or two, shopping briskly and making up for all the sound. What I'm describing to you is what we called the quiet hour. It was a special hour every Tuesday designed for children with autism. Yeah, they can't take large sound, they can't take large sounds, a lot of light, and there was nothing for shopping for them. When we spoke to some of the parents, they said there's nothing to make our children shop because everyone objects because they get disturbed by the sound. So this was 1 hour created around it. But this began again with sympathy, saying, oh, I feel so bad for the child. Oh, this is corporate social responsibility. Let me do something else. And we said, let's abandon all of it. Let's abandon and exclude the sympathy. Let's look at what really will build affinity for them. They're a bunch of shoppers, and we need to do what we're good at. That's what we're shopping. And what really came out was 155 stores started welcoming 14 disabilities for shopping across the country. Yeah, and the quiet hour was an ideal validation. I think no other shopping hour, at least in India, I know it's there abroad, which was got done around for children with autism. It's extremely tough to create a shopping environment for them. We had special trial rooms, special toilets which could take the wheelchairs. You had signages which became louder. There was AV audiovisual signages, and there were people who could converse in sign language. What you see here, if this scares you, I've just taken a grab of an announcement of a promotion for the hearing disabled. Yeah, this lady is exaggerating and saying, "Rush, only 2 more days of the offer," and that's what she's trying to say to a very different set of audience. So to me, this was a case where we excluded the sympathy and built in much larger empathy. Now, and that's where we all began, right? And I think we may end up saying that these are all examples from retail. You all mentioned them in second and third person. But let's take a quick pause and see. What the customer in Nashik told us, that you need to exclude a judgment on appearances and just bless them for their presence there. What the grocer told us, that it's okay to be competitive and need not and exclude a competition. What the young elder, the senior citizen told us, that exclude my view and take on your view, include your view. What the women from the first supermarket told us to say, that exclude your obsessiveness about valuation and instead embrace values. In this case, the value was customer service. And finally, the people with disabilities told us that you should exclude this whole need to say, I'm not good, I'm not good. Let me do what I'm good at and let's present to the whole world, right? And if you think they are only to retail, just think about it. The grocer could be an uncle of ours in some remote corner of the country whose business is getting disrupted by e-commerce and he doesn't know how to navigate the space. The customer in Nashik could be your and my house help's daughter who wants to do a data science course but doesn't know how to find it. The young elder, the senior citizen, could be your parent, my grandparent in some remote corner in Bihar or Mangalore fighting loneliness and abandonment. The women in the store, in the all women store, could be someone who has an art of music but doesn't know how to monetize it. And finally, the people with disability could be someone close to you who's always finding himself inadequate and not getting enough support from the system. If you look around, these personas do exist. They may be sitting right now next to you. They may be somewhere in the auditorium behind. They may be in this building, in your housing society, in the larger community. These personas exist and they seek inclusion. I think we need to be a little more large-hearted. We need to be a little more lighter. We need to expand our vision and include them. But my task today was to tell you that these roles exist, these personas exist. I would urge you to go and include many of them, but recognize that there will be barriers. And the only lesson which I leave behind for you, if you decide to go that path, and I spoke to some lovely students from you who spoke about what they're doing. If you decide to go on the path to include, then first figure out what's your exclusion checklist. What are you going to throw out? What will make way? What will be lighter? What is the baggage you will shed? I wish all of you many, many, many more instances to include in your life, but more importantly, have the lightness of exclusion. Do exclude and include as much as you can. Namaste.